Howdy y'all, this is AR Cavly. Welcome back to my channel. I've had a couple of people request a playthrough for solo or for hostile solo. Now, I will be doing that anyway because I want to try it out, so I figured I would honor that request and send a team of brave explorers into the dangerous unknown universe of Hostile. Now, I have a review video for this game on my channel, and it goes more into the rules and the basic setup of everything. So I'm not going to revisit that here. Instead, I'm just going to jump into the campaign and I will explain things as they come up, just as a refresher for me as well, because it has been a little while. I've read the books, and like any game, I'm going to forget something and hit pause here on my handy dandy recorder and look something up, and I'll save you from my flipping through the books to do that. So first off, as I did explain in the review, I've made a crew, and I'm going to be using the Roll20 website, the virtual tabletop, because I'm familiar with it and it has a lot of good features, and it has some good character sheets that are built in that you can use. I'm going to come over to my crew tab, and we can see here that these are all my guys. Let's see, I should probably put them in order as I have them on my sheet, but let's see. Well, at least put him at the top because he's the skipper. He's the captain. All right, I made little tokens, and the character sheet has their stats and their skills. And from these sheets, I can make rolls. If I had a final DM I wanted, a dice modifier I wanted to put in before I rolled, I would put it right there. And then roll it. It gives me get a little see fancy 3D dice. It gives me a total. And because of what I rolled, it automatically adds in his attribute DM and his skill level for a total of 13. So that's how the rolls will be used, or the task rolls will be used. They'll be using this, so everyone can see. I do prefer to throw dice, especially since I managed to get some kind of cool hostile black and greenish dice. But for the purposes of the playthrough, I'm just going to use VTT rules. And from time to time, when I'm looking stuff and I want to just to kind of share what what's going on, because I'm playing through for my own fun, but I'm also playing through to let other people see what that looks like. But enough with that. We're going to hop straight to, okay, let's see, actually, I have not named my ship yet. So while I've got this up, we're going to name our ship. This is an exploration ship, and this is a 2d6, or actually a d66 roll. On some of my other solo games, I went and made a whole fancy 2d or d66 rolling macro, but this I'm just going to use the advanced dice roller. You tell it what type of dice, and it puts it in order. I think if you roll the dice normally, it sets up a certain way, but all right, so 2, 5. We look at 2, 5 for exploration. And what we get, Cosmic Wanderer. All right, so we'll call it the Cosmic Wanderer, but the crew just calls her Wanda. I think that's a good idea. So our ship is Wanda. I'm just going to come over here and note that real quick. I have a handout of our Castle Bravo. That's actually a graphic from the, well, it's from one of the Hostile books. I can't remember, but this is what the Castle Bravo class ship looks like. I'm going to edit that. Cosmic Wanderer, Wanda. And perhaps when she's not working well, they call her Wanker instead. All right. Now we're going to head on over. We're going to go to our campaign. I'm just going to start. All right, so our career types, it talks about the starting location, the career types. Here it tells, what kind of characters. All right, and everything. We'll decide on the starting location here shortly. Our starting vehicle is the Voronkovo Castle Bravo, and it's kind of the standard survey vessel. Now, for this first couple of sessions at least, I'm going to try to focus on using the rules in Hostile Solo, just to kind of showcase it because it is a standalone game. But as I continue playing, and at any point I reserve the right to use one of my many other Hostile books. Okay, and in this case with an Explorer crew, I'm going to be using the, from time to time, the Hostile Explorers supplement, which I think has a lot of the, where a lot of info for this campaign in somewhat truncated form comes from. All right, and as we can see here, this is a node layout of the ship, right? Just you've got the bridge, staterooms, briefing rooms, lounges, and it's a general map, a node-based map, black box-based map. Now here if you look over here on the screen, this is actually from the Explorer's book. This is the deck plans of what the ship actually looks like. And if you map out the nodes and compare, it basically is the same thing, but I like having this. So this is going to be kind of the default map. And we just named our vehicle. There's a picture of her in flight. Isn't she beautimous? All right. So we're just going to jump into our survey campaign checklist. Create characters for the survey ship. And just as a quick reminder or introduction, Maxwell Carver, he is the captain of the ship. He's 52, whereas most of the crew are actually survey scouts. That's been their career. He's a spacer. He's a ship guy, and he's very educated. He's a skilled captain. Alicia Sharp, she's the pilot. She's very skilled as well. Benicio Rodriguez, he's our sensor operator. Giovanni Johnson, he is the expedition scout. He's one of the ground crew. In fact, I'm going to move him and our other expedition guy down to the bottom. Luke Morask is the navigator. He's Polish. Penelope Roberts is our engineer. Rosemary Sykes is our flight surgeon. And Owen Carter is our chief scientist. Okay. And each one of these has psych evaluations generated in the character creation. These characters I did use, instead of the more in-depth character creation rules from the hostile rule book or the hostile setting book, I used the abbreviated, the streamlined version that comes with Solo. One of the things that comes with it is a psych evaluation. And you can also roll up professional relationships as time goes on. I decided, because just to make it interesting, Maxwell Carver the captain, and to roll up for Maxwell Carver and Owen Carter. Oh, you know what? I didn't even realize. I used a random name generator to come up with these names, so I didn't even realize that Carter and Carver. Hmm. Yeah, but I have a thought that maybe they're related, and maybe they should both be Carter or Carver. And I'll leave it as this for now. But his role was that he was a lifelong friend with Maxwell. Okay, so they've known each other for a long time. The chief scientist, as described in the campaign roles, he is in charge of the survey part, of the expedition part, whereas the captain is in charge of the ship. And I'm expecting to be able to pull some good tension out of that relationship, where you have kind of the mission commander and the ship captain going at loggerheads from time to time. Now, the next step is to select a suitable star system. I will be using the hostile solo system generator, because it comes with a map of the planets in the hostile universe, at least the American sector of it. But the rules and the setting books, everything is detailed out, or a lot of it. There's a lot of good detail, a lot of excellent storylines and stuff in those books. So, for the purpose of at least this first part of the campaign, I will use the solo rules, but as the campaign goes on, I'll probably tap in, like I said, to some of that other stuff. So our next step is to select a suitable star system. And just to randomize things up, with the assumption that the Fomalhaut settlement zone, which is the outer rim instead of the frontier, as we can see shown how they're listed. Frontier, we have the Fomalhaut settlement zone, Extraction Zone 6, Extraction Zone 9, the new concession zone, and the Capella Extraction Zone. So, assuming that companies will still at least want to lean on the safer bet, with less risk, I'm going to set the Fomalhaut zone as 1 or 2, and then on a die 6 roll, and then just go across from Extraction Zone, Capella, new concessions, and then Extraction Zone. All right, so that gives us a 4, which is going to put us at 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to put us at the Capella Extraction Zone. Let's scroll down and take a look at Capella. All right, there's the Capella Extraction Zone. All right, so our starting location, as it lists, is supposed to be a B-class starport. All right, so in this zone, that's going to be on the planet of Levitcus. Right there. Now, as we scroll back up, we take a look at our key. We see that our Capella Extraction Zone, Levitcus, means the planet, at least for here. And this is not where we're going to be exploring. We're just going to be starting here and finding someplace in the Capella sector to explore. But our dark circle, the legend, means that there's seas or oceans present. Okay. Levitcus, it had a triangle, so that tells us that there's an MRA base, that's a mining regulatory authority base. And it had a dot up here, which means that there's gas giants in that particular system, and it's a starport B. All right, so we're going to start there in Capella and come up with where we're actually going to go in that sector. Now, Levitcus is not listed here in the starting location as a place that as a B class starport. I don't know if it's not listed because it's not an inclusive list, or if it's saying that it doesn't have a high port. But we're going to start at Levitcus anyway, and we'll come back later on, and if we survive our mission, and get some more details about Levitcus. All right, select a suitable star system for the mission. So I'm just going to take a quick peek and see what I can find that looks interesting there. And I think I will start with a die 6 roll. The higher the roll, the farther away from Levitcus that I want to look out. And given the scale, it actually shows a die 6 roll could actually even really just give us, the number of hexes away. So let's see what we got. All right, so that's going to give us 4 hexes away. Well, it looks good. That's about 4 hexes away. 2, 3, 4. Well, let's make it exciting. Let's go to the very edge of the map here. We'll go to LW 610. It has oceans, and it has gas giants, and a X-class star base, or is basically like nothing. So it's a big empty field, if anything, and maybe some guy named Ned down there with a ham radio and a flashlight to guide people in. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to make a handout, and this is going to act as our mission log. In hostile core, or solo, in hostile solo, where the story is basically worked out is in these mission logs. And so for each place that we go, I'm going to have a log for each mission. So I'm just going to name this mission log LW610. And this is where I'll put the things that happened, and it'll be where I write down stuff so that I don't have to go back and watch my videos to remember what happened last time. All right, let's get back to our checklist now. Now, what's handy about using the PDF is that it has these handy bookmarks there. All right, so we're going to plan the flight. How far to the hyperspace point? How far to the destination star system? How long will it take? How many burns? That kind of stuff. All right, now it does discuss these things later on. We're going to survey the system, and it talks about how to make the system. Right? Like I said, if I were to go to the main rule book, it has a lot of this stuff. It'll probably have that LW610 built out. It'll have its universal world profile. But we're going to generate it using these tables. Okay. Now, one of the explorers also taps into the first campaign for shipping, because shipping has some of the same, or some useful tables, like for encounters and things like that you might find, cargo, passengers, and how to detail the main world. Okay. And so we'll go step by step and detail the system and plan the flight. Although I'll try not to, I won't make it too, it's not even really number crunchy, but I won't make you listen to me stumble through trying to figure out and counting on my toes. But in the section on spaceflight, it talks about, here it describes the starport. Okay, type X, no starport. Type B is a large complex, okay, and has an orbital high port. So if it's a B, it has some kind of high port. So Levitcus does have a, or should have a high port. All right, now that we have selected our suitable planet, we're going to go on to our next step, which is assemble the flight crew at the starport. So they're gathered together, and I've decided that they're going to work for Reiner Gamma, just because I kind of like the name. So that's who they are working for. So they have gathered at the high port in a Reiner Gamma stateroom, and the Reiner Gamma offices are probably pretty close to the mining regulatory authority offices, in, kind of the same wing of the Levitcus high port. And as they are getting their initial briefing, Maxwell Carver is going through the steps, going through the processes, making sure that everybody's paperwork is complete, making sure that contracts are up to date, that pay scales are still valid. And once that's done, he begins to go over these standard pre-flight readiness briefings. His psychedelic, he doesn't like to take chances. So these kind of things are important to him. He likes to make sure that everything's signed, all the dots and all the I's are dotted, all the T's crossed, all that stuff. So he's giving his presentation. Maybe it sounds somewhat like Bueller, or something like that. But we see here that we're going to make a reaction roll. All right, so we're going to see if there is some kind of conflict that starts in one of these things. Someone cracks a joke, someone gets pissed off, someone's passing notes, who knows? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll die 8. Okay, or 2 die 8 actually. All right, so 5 and 1. All right, so it's going to be the captain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Rosemary Sykes. All right. So they're the ones involved, and we're going to make a reaction roll. If it's an 8 or higher, then things are smooth. Otherwise, there's going to be some kind of conflict here. Let's see. I'll use the captain's. I'll use the captain's character sheet. I wonder if carousing. No, this is not really a carousing situation. Okay, so that's a 7. So there is some kind of conflict between them, and I think in order to see what we can tap into, I'm going to roll a relationship with her. Now, this relationship roll may not actually involve the captain directly, but maybe it's causing her to behave or do something that he has a problem with. So we're going to go to our page back here. And that's going to be in page 69. All right, there we go. So we're just going to roll on this table, see if there's some kind of relationship, and use it as a drama seed. So just going to roll ourselves 2 dice 6, 4, 3. 4, 3 gives us a married couple. I'm not sure that fits very well. So I'm going to flip that around, and dependent on another PC support. Now that one actually makes a little more sense because our ship's doctor is not the most likable person. Her skills are decent, but her stats are low, her social and her intelligence. So I'm going to take this reaction roll and turn it into the. I'm going to note that she is dependent on the skipper's support, and that actually makes sense. So I've noted that change on her character sheet, and what I'm picturing here is while he's giving the briefing, he's going over the many requirements, the many safety processes, and when he gets to the part about the responsibilities of the ship's flight surgeon, as he goes on and on, Rosemary starts to freak out. She starts to feel like he is either attacking her or he's putting these things out knowing that she can't do it, because that's part of her psyche, Val, is she's very sensitive to criticism, and in this case she's not even really being criticized, but she starts to freak out, and she stands up and she says, well, if you don't think I can do it, then why don't you find yourself another flight surgeon? There's plenty of time. The station's full of them, I'm sure. And Captain Maxwell blinks in surprise at this outburst and says, Rosemary, relax. This is just standard pre-flight. I'm not saying anything about you or your skills or anything like that. You've flown with us. I have complete faith in you. No. So just relax. Relax. You got this. And I know you've got this. And he gives her a reassuring smile. And she looks around and she can tell that the rest of the crew is kind of rolling their eyes as Rosemary needs comforted again. And she sits down abashed and kind of hides herself by just staring into the terminal that she's following along with. So that was the result of the failed reaction roll. So now there's a little tension starting already. She's touchy, and now the rest of the crew, and probably the captain too, don't really have a good feel for how she reacted in that case. All right, so let's head back to. We've now got the assembling done. Okay, assemble the crew at the starport. We've done that. Make the reaction roll. Plan the flight. How far to the hyperspace point? Okay, now this part is in up here in the space flight section. All right, this just while I'm at it, this page here on 84 talks about the types of starports. Okay. We're going to assume, just because we're using the Solo as a standalone as much as possible, that Levitcus has a starport. There might be some kind of reason why it wasn't listed. Maybe it's a B, but has some other special thing going on. Um, and so each large starship has 24 burns, which is basically just a weight to mass ratio. The bigger the ship, the more fuel, the more mass. And so as it turns out, uh, a lot of the flight profiles are fairly similar. Just as a side note, I've done some deep dive type stuff into orbital mechanics, and there's a lot of someone counterintuitive mechanics in those orbits. You would think that increasing the engine size or the reaction mass or the velocity or specific impulse, changing these things, and in a lot of cases, big changes don't really net a lot of gain, in the time traveled. So anyway, that's as an aside. It is very interesting. Well, if you're interested in that thing, that is it is interesting. Um, but every ship starts with 24 burns, and here's the maneuver carried out. All right, for each of the actions, as we're planning our stuff, we're just going to start off worrying about the travel out to the hyperspace point, and that's going to cause us 4. Okay. At this point, we don't actually, even though the step says to um, plan it, we don't really have much to plan because we're going to get there, do our sensor sweep, and then decide what to do. At this point, we've got enough to get to the hyperspace point, and that's really all we really need to start with. And as another aside, just from playing solo, if any of these processes seem too cumbersome, then skip over them, because part of it's going to be figuring out how long it takes to get to the hyperspace point, how long it takes in hyperspace itself, and if those things are not of interest or you don't want to take the time, it's completely fine to skip those and just make a random point, or even just not even specify it, just kind of fade to black, and then there they are at the hyperspace point. Um, there are a lot of solo games that are narrative, and they skip that kind of stuff. And in some cases, I prefer to do that too. But I like the sort of the pre-flight, the mission control idea that Hostile puts out there. So you're planning this stuff, and you get a little more detail. I like it, so I'm going to do that. But just like with anything else in a solo game, you're there pleasing yourself. So if you don't want to do it, just skip it. Skip it. All right. How long will it take? How many burns? Oh yeah, I need to determine how far away, that's actually what I jumped back there for. I need to determine how far away the hyperspace jump is from the main world. And this is also in the space flight section. Hyperspace point to or from the main world. 2-6 times 10 million kilometers. So we're just going to give ourselves our 2-6. All right, so from Levitcus, high port, it is 80 million kilometers to the hyperspace point. And I'm going to just jot that down in our notes real quick. All right, so I've noted that down, hyperspace point, 80 million. And now the next step is we're going to figure out how long that's going to take when we get there, but we'll show right here. The maneuver drive rating is going to determine how many million kilometers you travel per day. Now our spacecraft, I've already recorded it over here under the Wanda, and this is in the book. It just is called Scoutcraft, but our hyperdrive is 2 parsecs a week, and our reaction drive is 3 Gs. 3 Gs. And so we travel 30 million kilometers per day under reaction thrust. So that's going to put us about 2.5 days before we hit there. Just something to keep in mind, obviously. Okay. So as they are, once they're done with the safety briefing, they report to the ship and make sure they've got all their, final will and testament, all their contracts, the orders are downloaded to the ship. Now, here it says to roll for any holdups. And to do that, we just roll 1-6. And on a 1, there's some kind of holdup. All right, so no holdup. There's no problem with fuel allocation, no missing cargo or anything like that. So they load up, and the crew is making sure that their workspaces are properly equipped, that their tools are where they're supposed to be. There wasn't too long ago when old Owen Carter, someone forgot to put some of the quads on the ship, and so they had to do a lot more walking. So he's very careful to make sure that all the vehicles are there. All right, now we're going to roll a starport encounter. Now this is one of those encounters where the table is actually in the campaign shipping, or campaign 1 for shipping. Come on, where'd you go? Okay. There's space encounters, ship encounters. Starport encounters. Sorry, I probably should have just jumped straight to that one. Is there a, yeah. So it's going to be 2-6. And it's, by 2-6, I mean, it's actually like a, D66. So that's a 5-3 for our starship encounter. 5-3. Meet a fellow traveler as a potential contact. When met again, they may offer assistance or ask for your help. All right, well, I think we'll just pause for a minute and we'll use the tables here and determine who this stranger is that we've met. So we're just going to give a roll on this patron encounter on page 126. You see what who is this interesting person that we've run into? 2 and a 1. Or, oh no, sorry, that's 1, 2. A reporter. All right. Is the reporter interested in them? They're not really doing anything special that they know of. I'm going to say that probably not. That he or she is just hanging around. Maybe they cover Starship News. Maybe they're like a mining regulatory reporter, or maybe they work for Uplift. Is that what it's called? Okay, it's Upstream. This is from the Explorers, Hostile Explorers book. There's it looks like a magazine or something. So I'm going to say this is a reporter for Upstream, just hanging around watching their normal beat. And on a 5 or a 6, he's actually in some way he's there to report on them. And on a 6, he may actually have some kind of information about the mission that they don't have. Otherwise, he's just hanging around. So 1 die 6, we'll ask the 1 die 6. Okay, so 5. This reporter. All right, I used just a online random name generator. They met possible patron / contact Joy Spencer, a reporter for Upstream magazine. So her interest in them is not so much in them necessarily, but she's trying to pump for information about, what they expect to find at LW610, if they're looking for something particular, and just a bunch of kind of standard reporter questions. Who does she end up talking to? Owen Carter, probably the best person. So as they're getting ready, Owen has made sure his stuff is ready to go. He has a list of his, his equipment, his experiments, and she approaches him during one of the breaks while they're getting ready to finally try to take off. And I'm just going to have him make a social check. And she's pretty friendly, so I'm going to give it a +1 DM. She's trying to be friendly. Holy smokes. 8. Okay, so that little window down there, it showed 0, so it kind of confused me. So he rolled well, and so they kind of hit it off. Maybe there's a little maybe there's a little sexual tension between the expedition leader and this feisty reporter, but he tells her what he can, because of course the ship, the entire mission is covered in 10 layers of non-disclosure agreements, but he knows what he can talk about, and so they flirt a little bit, and she says, if you ever need anything, here's my information, here's my phone card data. If you need any help And if you get any good scoops, you know, maybe we can go out and have some drinks. And so Owen Carter, once he's done having the conversation, it's time for ship's call. Everyone gets the call and they load up and take off. Carver is kind of a hands-on, like I said, he's kind of a dot the I's, uh, and so he's going to be doing the flying in important parts, or at least the standard parts, landing and takeoff, just because he's the captain and he is a good pilot. He's not so foolish as to not use his crew to his advantage. And Alicia Sharp is a excellent pilot too, so he does not trust her. Sorry, it's not that he does not trust her. He's just he feels that it's his job as the captain to make sure that, well, that he's at the helm when the big things are going, and leaving port is always a big deal. So let's take a look at our next step. All right, plan the flight, roll Starship Encounter, takeoff. All right, so roll 1 die 6. On a 1, the pilot needs to make a trajectory change with a successful pilot skill roll. If failed, he basically messed something up, or really maybe not even mess something up, but something happens, they have to readjust. But that's only on a 1. Ooh, close. I saw that. All right, so nothing there. Okay, travel to the hyperspace point. Roll on a 1 die 6. And on a 1, the navigator needs to plot a revised course. Oh, okay, so something happened. The navigator needs to try to make a course adjustment. Now, as these are, generally speaking, they're standard operating procedure. It's not an emergency situation, so nothing that would normally. I mean, we've rolled a 1 for the navigation, so we do have to adjust that. But there's no required piloting roll at this point because there's 2 experienced pilots, and all they're doing is disembarking from Levitcus High Point. Okay, the navigator needs a plot. Okay, so the navigator, let's take a look at old Luke over here. We'll give him a roll. Oh, okay, well, he's a pretty good navigator. Got a skill level of 3. All right, so he manages to, as they are making their initial burn, their deorbit burn to get out from the Levitcus High Point, it turns out that there is some kind of Yahoo cargo cruiser or something that ended up dropping a pod, and it's in their way, so they end up having to make a maneuver. He has to plot a new course quickly, but it's easy enough. It's a simple course correction. He gets a 9 total on his roll, so that's no big deal there. And I'll go ahead and note that real quick. And our next step is roll for a star system encounter. So we're going to have our space encounters, and let's see. Okay. So we're going to roll our D66. 1 and 1. Ship encounter if the main world has an A-class starport. So, nothing. This is not an A-class starport, so nothing happens at all. It is a completely uneventful ride out to the hyperspace point. They traveled for 2.5 days, and I think we've probably done enough social encounters between the briefing role and meeting the reporter. So I'm just going to say it's a boring travel out in space, which, despite despite all of our love of heroic space travel adventures, most of it will be very boring, just sitting in a tin can, drifting from place to place. All right. All right, so step 8, the crew enter hypersleep. Ship enters hyperspace. And I think given the length of the video so far, I'm getting close to an hour. I think it's probably a good place to stop, and then I will continue on the adventure at some point. So as they approach the hyperspace point, the crew begins to dress down. They begin to do their medical preparations. They start putting in their catheters. Well, they don't, but the doctor does. The various IVs, and they lay down one by one. Rosemary puts them all to sleep, runs a final check on their hypersleep bed before moving on to the next one. Giovanni, and then Owen, and Penelope, and Luke, and Benicio, and then Alicia Sharp, the pilot, goes in until it's just Rosemary and Maxwell. And she starts doing his setup, and she says, I'm really sorry about about my little come apart there at the briefing. Don't worry about it, Rosemary. We're out there. I know that you can do it. Go ahead and put me under. Hop in. Let's go. As his vision begins to turn black, as the medicines and the cooling take place to put him into this hyper sleep state, he has a disturbing feeling. Something doesn't seem right. He can't put his finger on it. It's not a physical feeling like he's ill. He just has a sense of foreboding. He does not like hypersleep at all, and he doesn't like hyperspace at all either. But he's got enough time peddling vacuum that these things don't bother him, or at least they don't usually bother him. But as his last shred of consciousness slips away, he remains troubled about what lies ahead for the Wanda and her crew. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it's kind of giving you an idea. I know it's giving me an idea, and I kind of like it. We'll get into the meat of it hopefully next time, when the next steps are to start identifying survey sites and actually getting their hands dirty. So anyway, thanks for following along, and happy gaming.